Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this video is going to be diving into a big release upcoming in the mobile genre in Diablo Immortal. I'm going to be joined by Echohack, who has been rank 1 many times on the server, has put in almost 1,000 hours during the beta, so I thought he'd be a good person to bring on the channel and bounce some questions off of, like, what's the monetization going to be like, what class should you play based on the type of player you are, and how the different systems work, what the day one launch experience is going to be like. And if it seems like we're bouncing around a little bit, it's just because there's a lot I want to ask, there's a lot I want to get to and talk about. So I hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. Okay, and now I am joined by Echohack. How you doing today?
Hey, Chosen. Hey, good morning. Hey, welcome in. Well, wait a second. Why am I welcoming you?
No, it's all good. It's all good. We're good. You can welcome me. That's fine. I mean, I am joining you, and that works. So, yeah, just really quickly wanted to touch base with you about some of the questions I had here for Diablo Immortal, since you got a chance to get in and really go hard on the beta, which I know not very many people got to do. And you ended up with what, like 1,000 hours or so?
Yeah, about 1,000 hours total across all of the different test cycles. Also worth noting is that I've been the Immortal, which is the most powerful character in the game, sort of like the top of the game, longer than anybody else in the world at this point. So definitely have the gameplay credentials under my belt.
Nice, that's awesome. And some people are gonna not have no clue what you mean. So what is that
Yeah.
like? What is that system of like immortals and like the PvP aspect and how that kind of works?
Oh yeah, that's the sort of like end game system for folks who really want to play this game and play it like a serious Diablo like MMO style kind of game. But yeah, I would love to jump into some of your other questions, especially for the new players out there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll touch on that a little bit later. And I did have a lot of questions about some of the new players. So like what's day one gonna look like for launch? Like, when you download the game launches, and kind of the first things you're gonna do, those first few hours of gameplay, what's that experience gonna be like?
Exactly. So, sort of the first thing I'll say is that right now, as of this recording, we don't know the exact release date. We don't know like how they're going to release the game like precisely. So like those details are still kind of unknown. But once you download the game, once you install the game, then essentially there's a few things that you're going to do. You're going to pick a class. So there's 6 classes in the game. You're going to pick a class, and then you're going to go through the tutorial, and you're going to start going through the story, and you're going to go through sort of like this leveling process. And the game really does a good job of sort of holding your hand and teaching you how to play. So even if it's your first time playing a Diablo Immortal or a Diablo game in general, you don't really have to do any sort of like prior research. I know there's like a lot of games out there where you'll need to like have a wiki up on a screen or something to like know what you're doing, or like look at like gotcha pull rates, or like any of that kind of stuff. You don't need to do that for Immortal. You can just jump right in and start having fun.
Or re-rolling, like play for an hour and see how it's going and then like restart. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, there's absolutely no optimizations around like sort of like re-rolling an account or anything like that. They did a really good job in making sure that you're super invested into what you're doing, right? So, there's no sort of like, you get this much energy, and you didn't get lucky, and you didn't get the thing, and that there's no sort of like idea like that in this game.
So there is no energy mechanic. You can technically play 12 hours a day for free, or
Oh yeah, yeah. So there's absolutely no. That's a really good question. There's no energy mechanics in this game. There's no time based, systems or anything like that. You can play 24/7 if you want.
okay, cool. And then what is that actual leveling process going to be like? I know in Diablo 3 you could choose adventure mode or campaign, and then you would level like 1 to 60, then you would get Paragon levels. Is it how long does it take to get to that point where you max out, and then you start kind of the end game grind of the Paragon levels and that type of stuff?
Yeah, all sorts of good questions. So In this game, so the first thing you're going to do is pick your class, and this is a pretty big decision, and I think we're going to go into sort of the different classes a little bit later in this discussion. But once you've picked your class, then you're going to start leveling. Now, 60 is the max character level, and there are Paragon levels after level 60. So they've actually done a really amazing job with the new player experience in this game. And so there's only sort of like the story mode, and the story mode includes like tutorials for all sorts of the different game mechanics and different game modes that you have in this game. So there's not like one game mechanic. Like in Diablo 3, for example, that there's pretty much one game mechanic you care about, and that's riffs, and you just rift all day, and that's all you do. This game has a lot of different things to do. There's a lot of variety in the gameplay systems, so there's a lot to teach you as well. So as you're leveling up, the game will guide you through these things. It'll tell you, hey, this is what this is what the blacksmith does. This is how to upgrade your equipment. This is what gems do. This is how to upgrade your gems. Here's legendary gems, and here's how to upgrade these. Here's elder rifts, and here's the marketplace, and here's challenge rifts, and this is how to do bounties, and then I could go on and on and on. But the game's going to teach you all of these things. So level 1 to 10 will take you about 15 minutes. So it's pretty fast. I would consider level 1 to 10 to be the most basic tutorial for the game. It teaches you, how to move with the joystick, how to use your character's abilities, like the really basics of the game. Then after that, you're gonna go through the first zone, and you're gonna get to the main city. And by the time you get to the main city, you're gonna be about level 20. So that's about an hour of gameplay. Once you get to the main city, it's called Westmarch. And then once you hit Westmarch, this is sort of like the big, where all of the big systems are. So you're going to spend a long time, like a good 15 minutes in Westmarch, just running around and learning about all the different systems in the game. And then after that, you sort of have the grind up to 30, and that's going to take you a total of 2 to 3 hours, depending on your experience with Diablo games and Diablo Immortal, and sort of like planning out your character and all that kind of stuff. So once you hit level 30, this is sort of where the rest of the grind begins, and the game gets a lot harder. The XP curve gets a lot harder after level 30, all the way up until level 60. And so I would say the fastest speedrunners, like people like myself, might be able to get level 60 in about 20 hours of just like hardcore grinding. And maybe the casualist of the most casual could probably do it in about 30 hours.
Okay, so that is a lot different than Diablo 3. And Diablo 3, well, actually, I think they upped it to level 70 with the expansion, but like we were hitting level 70 on a brand new account from scratch in like 2 hours. So yeah, it is going to kind of slow down a little bit at level 30.
Oh yeah, and these days in Diablo 3, some of the hardest core blasters can hit level 70, and you know at a fresh season start where nobody can power level you, they can hit level 70 in 40 minutes to an hour. It's ridiculous.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, I mean, because I haven't played in like 3 years, but I know I played on hardcore too, so it might be a little bit slower. But I think the most blaster tier were about an hour 45 or so was about the craziest. But it looks like they've cut that in half.
Yeah, there's these days on D3, there's a lot of strategies to really speed things up.
Okay, cool. And then so it looks like you'll get to the Paragon grind somewhere between 20 and 40 hours, depending how fast you want to go and how experienced you are with Diablo games.
Paragon.
And then the Paragon system launches.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about Paragon a little bit. So this is really, once you've put 20 to 30 hours in the game, you're going to start hitting the end game, and the end game consists of more than just Paragon levels, right? So that's a very Diablo 3 idea, is that you just do infinite Paragon levels, and that's it. That's all you have. So this game again has a million different systems, and Paragon is just one of those mini systems in an ocean of systems, right? So one thing to know about this game is that there is not infinite Paragon grinding. There's this thing called World Paragon, and by the way, I'm really fond of this system, as as someone who's played more than 20,000 hours of Diablo 3 and Diablo 2 and all these other things over the years, I'm really fond of this World Paragon system. So anyway, the way this works is that the server itself, like your server that you're on, will gain 2 Paragon levels per day. And based on the world Paragon, you get an XP adjustment of how much XP you earn. And then there's sort of like a soft cap on the high end of things. So if you're under the world Paragon level, you get double the XP. If you're within 5 levels of it, you get 100%. And then if you're over 5 levels, you get 25%. And then if you're over 10 levels, you get 10%. And the math, we did the math in the beta where, having, or sorry, I should say 5%. We're having 5%, like if you're 10 over, having 5% of the XP that you would normally get would take you 43 hours a day to get even 1 level. So there's less than 43 hours in a day. So essentially you're soft capped in terms of like how many Paragon you can get per day. But you can always come back the next day and get, a couple more Paragon levels.
Oh, okay. So that's basically a system to try and shorten the gap between the blaster players and the casual players.
Exactly. Yeah. And it actually works out really well because what happens is the blaster players still have, they're able to eke out a minor advantage over casual players, right? So casual players, they're going to lag behind in Paragon levels, maybe 10, maybe 20 Paragon levels behind absolute blaster tier players. And absolute blaster tier players will be, in there grinding, somewhere between 2 and 8 hours a day to really have those extra juicy Paragon levels and just like eke out a tiny little advantage, which is it's really nice. But it also means that like if you want to play with your friends at any time, they're never so far above you in power that you feel like a burden to them, or something like that.
Okay, yeah, that is interesting. And so, and that's another thing I wanted to ask when I heard you bring it up, that a lot of people are going to be curious about. When the game launches, are you going to have to like pick the same server as your friends? Because like on Lost Ark, you got to make sure on New World, you got to make sure like what server are you on? Is that going to be, or is it just kind of like region locked? How does that go?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And a lot of the details, the precise details around that haven't been released yet. We do know a couple things. So they have said, the devs have stated in the past that the servers will be World of Warcraft like. So if you want to play with your friends, you probably want to pick the same server. However, my understanding is that PvP, particularly Battlegrounds, will be region based. So whenever you're like matchmaking for certain game modes, those will be region based. So you mentioned Lost Ark, so yeah, I think that's very similar to how a lot of the systems work in Lost Ark as well.
Okay, cool. And then I'll kind of transition as we're talking about the overarching theme of the game and how it compares to things like Lost Ark. What's kind of a quick synopsis of the monetization model? Like what are the benefits of whaling out? Is it possible to do well free to play, and just kind of some of those basic points on monetization?
Yeah, so if I wanted to give you my judgment of monetization, it would involve a lot of speculation. So I'll tell you sort of what I know. So from the beta was a test of the monetization system, and what they've stated over and over since then is that they're looking at all of the data from the test and they're going to be changing a lot of things based on that data. So a lot of the monetization stuff is still kind of up in the air. But based on the data, I do know that there's a lot of things that you can buy in this game. The first and probably the most important thing, and the best value for the money, is what's called the Battle Pass. So you can get a free Battle Pass in the game, and that will give you some rewards as you progress it. But you can also buy a like an upgrade to the Battle Pass, or I actually forget what they call it now, the Awakened Battle Pass. I forget off the top of my head. But if you buy the Awakened Battle Pass, then you get a whole bunch more rewards, including a really important resource called Scoria. And what Scoria lets you do is it lets you unlock the end game Heliquary bosses. It's the end game 8-player raids a lot sooner than other players. So it does let you progress sort of the end game raids like a lot sooner. And I don't think they've finalized any prices, but in the beta you could buy the battle pass for $5 a month. And then there were some other things that you could buy. Like there was something called the Boon of Plenty, but very specifically, they've also said that they're not happy with the Boon of Plenty itself. So I think that might actually go away, or they might change it significantly before the launch.
But you said there was like an awakened battle pass. So is there like a $5 version and like a $10 version, or?
So in the beta, there was only the $5 version. I don't know anything, but I get vibes that they might change that to have like sort of different tiers, that they might have like a $5 and a $10 version, kind of like you're mentioning there. But again, they haven't revealed any details about that, so that's kind of speculation on my part. But yeah, there's other things that you can buy in the game. So there's as you level up and you finish different sections of the game, like different dungeons especially, there are these bundles that unlock, and these bundles can be anywhere from a couple dollars to $10, and these bundles will give you a whole bunch of materials and other things that you can use to sort of progress your character. They're not nearly as valuable as the battle pass. They're not nearly as efficient, but they're still more efficient than just buying stuff in the store in general. So then the other thing you can do is you can buy stuff in the store. So you can buy the in-game currency, which is platinum, and then you can also buy eternal orbs, which eternal orbs allow you to get other things in the store, right? So they have a couple of these currencies. Importantly, there's something called the marketplace in the game, and the marketplace is kind of like an auction house, and so you can use platinum to buy things in the marketplace.
When
So
people hear auction house, they're gonna get scared.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So let me be clear. So the marketplace is not like you can put anything you want in there. It's a very, very limited set of things. So it's like normal gems, legendary gems, skill stones. Is there anything else? I don't know. It's very limited.
But is this like
And when
peer-to-peer trading, or is it peer
it
to
is,
client?
yeah, it's peer to peer. So only like a player has to, let's say, like find a normal gem in the world and then go to the marketplace, put it up for sale. And even when you put it up for sale, you can't just like freeform put whatever price you want in. You like put a percentage of a base price, and then there's like a maximum and a minimum percentage. So you can't just like totally gouge the market either, right? So it's less of an auction house and more of a marketplace. It really has like very little in common with auction houses that you see in like World of Warcraft, for example. It has very little in common.
Well, and like when Diablo 3 launched, you could
Oh
like,
yeah, it's nothing like that.
you could buy a character for like $2,000 real money and just get kitted out. And
Yeah, that's actually important to mention here, is that there's no way to buy any gear in this game. So especially as you get towards the end game, you're going to get a lot of legendary items and set items, and there's these things called exceptional items where your legendary and set items can roll like additional stats. You can never buy any of that stuff or trade it or anything. You have to earn all of that stuff for yourself.
are you able to like drop things for a friend? Like, let's say you're a god to your player, and like 2 weeks into it, you get a friend into the game. Can I drop them a bunch of GG gear, a bunch of gems, and get them up and rolling, or do they kind of hinder the PvP trading like that?
So there's absolutely nothing like that. And in fact, the only way I know to even transfer anything in the game, even like between your own characters is through the marketplace. And of course, if you put something up on the marketplace, then anybody else could buy it as well. But I think there's also something worth mentioning here, and we can touch back sort of like on sort of some of the more beginner systems, is that when you choose your class at the beginning of the game, that's a pretty big decision, right? Like this game is very different than something like Diablo 3, where like your class that you pick, you're investing in that class. Like all of these different systems, normal gems and legendary items and set items and all these things that you invest in, they take a very long time to get. And so it would feel really bad if you picked a class and then a month down the line you didn't like it and then you needed to start all over again. That would feel terrible. So what they've just announced, this wasn't even in the beta in the game, this was announced in a blog, is they have something called the class change system. Now, again, we don't know a lot of the precise details, but one of the things they have mentioned in the past is that in this game, they want you to feel like the class that you pick is sort of like your class, you know? So I get the impression that this isn't going to be like Final Fantasy 14, right? Where you can just like switch classes kind of like whenever you want, basically. I feel like they're going to make it a lot more difficult to switch classes. So, I get the impression that the way that this will work is it'll be more like you start the game off, you play the game for a month or two, and then a month or two in the game, you can change your class once. And then and then in another month or two, you can change your class again. I feel like it's going to work something more like that.
So it looks like you're really going to have an identity with a main class. Are people going to be having alt characters? Because like I know in Diablo 3, it was important to have like a Z neck and a support barb and a DPS necro. So are people going to be having alt characters at like the top level, or is everybody just going to kind of have a main?
Yeah, everyone's going to have a main. This game is not Diablo 3, like even close. And the way your character is going to work is that you're going to have different builds for your characters, and you're going to be able to do all the things that you need to do in your one character, right? So you'll collect all the different legendary powers, and then if you need to go into a support build, then you'll simply go and you'll swap things out, and then you'll be in your support build. So you don't need to have like a different character or a different class, or need to follow the meta so closely where it is. So like in Diablo 3, for example, if you have the wrong class, then you just can't do a support build. Like your support build doesn't even matter. In this game, it's a lot different. Most of the classes have some sort of viable support build that's really good, and most of the classes have some sort of DPS build that's really, really good. Of course, like the top 0.001% of players, they're going to have very particular opinions about which classes and which builds they're using and that sort of thing. But for the very large majority of the player base, that doesn't matter.
Okay, cool. Well, that segues me into something I did want to ask you about, which was just kind of the best class for your different types of players. You've got like your casual player that's gonna log in here and there a couple times a week and be mostly free to play, and then you've got like your middling player, which is somebody who's gonna go hard on the game, pretty regularly, but maybe not drop a ton of money or be super crazy about being in an elite clan. Then you've got your top level players that are gonna spend whatever it takes and play 6 hours a day. So for these three different types of players, what would be like the top 1 or 2 recommendations for class on day 1 from you?
Yeah, absolutely. This is again, like I just mentioned, this is maybe one of the most important decisions you can make at the beginning of the game. If you're going to research anything at the beginning of the game, it's which class you want to play. And in fact, I just put a video out on my own channel mentioning sort of like what is the best class in the game and going over all of them in detail. But I'll try to summarize for you here. So essentially, the way the core mechanics in this game work make any class that you want to play comparable to any of the other classes. In other words, there's no like F tier classes in this game. They're all S tier or A tier, and really that's sort of like someone's opinion. If you go and you ask another content creator, they're going to give you a slightly different tier list than my tier list. And there's also there's also no preference in terms of like free to play or pay to win or whatever. So any of those systems are completely separate from the class itself. So what's really cool about that is that it's very freeing in the sense that you get to pick the class fantasy that you want to play. Um, I guess I'll just go into that for a moment. So there's 6 different classes in this game, and there's 3 melee classes and there's 3 ranged classes. So I feel like the first decision that you need to make when you're picking your class is, do you like to, sort of like jump in the middle of things and destroy your opponents and, have an axe in your hand and just smash things? Or do you want to be at range, like carefully judging the distance between you and your opponent, kiting things back, stutter stepping, that sort of thing, and be ranged? So if you pick melee or ranged first, that will tell you a lot. And then after that, you need to pick between those 3 different classes that are melee ranged. So on melee, we have Barbarian, Monk, and Crusader. And on ranged, we have Demon Hunter, we have Necromancer, and we have Wizard. And so the other sort of thing to evaluate the classes on is whether they do more single target damage or whether they do more area of effect damage. So the classes do have like sort of different flavors when it comes to this as well, right? And so you pick melee or ranged, and then you're like, okay, do I want to blast down bosses and big target juicy creatures, or do I want to be the guy that comes in and like groups everything up and clears trash mobs and that sort of thing? So on this spectrum, the best single target in the game would definitely be the Demon Hunter by far, and the best area of effect damage dealer in the game would be the Crusader. And so you also have Barbarian, which is very good, more on the AoE side of things. And then you have Monk, which is sort of more in the middle. You have Wizard, which is sort of in the middle. And then you have Necromancer, which is a little bit more single target as well.
Okay. And then what would be, if you had to recommend one for each of those 3 players, what would be your leader in the clubhouse for free to play, middling, and then like Blaster Whale?
Yeah. So again, like as I said, there's any of the classes are good. It doesn't matter if you're free to play or a blaster.
Yeah, so you get me trying to like pin you down to an answer, but you're like, I'm telling you, man, it's all viable.
It really is. And in fact, actually, that's maybe the most important point here, is that a lot of the end game systems are going to require you to diversify your party, right? So in this game, parties are of 4 players, but there's also 8-player raids. And you'll want to have as much diversity in those parties as possible. So when you get a group together, you'll want to have 4 unique classes, right? You don't want to have like 4 Demon Hunters. You want to have like a Demon Hunter and a Crusader and a Barbarian and a Monk, right? And there's a couple reasons for that. The first is that the buffs in this game, every class has a pretty good buff for other characters, except Demon Hunter. But every class is able to buff everybody else in the party, and those buffs don't stack with each other. So if you had 2 barbarians in the party, essentially you're out one of your buffs, right? So having unique buffs is very valuable. And then one of the things we also know from the beta is that there is a Paragon tree a little bit into the game. I want to say about 2 months into the game, people are going to start unlocking this Paragon tree, where having unique classes in your party actually gives you massive damage and survivability buffs. So that's going to be really important as well.
Okay. And then would you say it'd be a good idea to have, like, let's say you've got a group of 4 friends. Would it be good to go like 2 melee and 2 ranged then?
Yeah, I mean, even that sort of split, like my favorite split is 3 melee, 1 ranged. Like if right now you had to pin me down, you'd say, Echo, what are you going
now
at
you're
launch?
talking
Like,
my language. There you go.
Yeah. So what are you picking at launch, Echohack? So I would say I would have 1 Monk, 1 Crusader, 1 Barbarian, 1 Demon Hunter. That would be my sort of friend group. But the other thing they have here is they have something called war bands, and war bands are an 8-player friend group. And again, the details around this haven't been revealed, but they've said in a blog post that they're going to reward you for playing with your warband. So you can actually represent every class in 8 players. There's 6 classes. There's 8 players, even with a couple of overlaps there. So if you're planning out all the, if you're going super hard, you're giga blasting, whatever, then I would pick one of every class, and then you could have 2 overlap.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. That's good to hear that that most stuff is viable, especially if you're, so much of your identity in the game is going to be based around this class. It's good to hear there isn't like a trash can F tier and they're all kind of making sense. So one thing I know is a massive topic also that I've got circled here is controller support. So is there anything
Oh, yeah.
is there anything that you would recommend in terms of integrating well with Diablo Immortal and how you kind of enjoyed to play it and stuff like that? Because playing 1,000 hours, I'm sure you probably tried a few different ways and you have some insight on what felt the best.
Oh, so much insight. Again, I've put my own video out on my own channel about this that goes into not just controller support versus non-controller support, but all of the different kinds of controllers, like testing them out and showing them off and all that kind of thing. But I think there's really sort of 3 things to consider here. The first is, kind of where are you playing the game? If you're playing the game, at a desk, and you're live streaming it, or you're doing some other like content creation or something like that, then you're going to want to play the game very differently than someone who's playing on a couch, and you're going to want to play the game very differently than someone who's playing like kind of on the go, like on a bus or on a train, or as a passenger in a car or something like that. So I kind of think there's a few use cases for playing the game. And definitely people who are going to play the game a lot are absolutely going to want to play with a controller. The controller support for this game is like god tier. It's genius tier. And frankly, it sort of transforms the game from being a quote unquote, mobile game to being more of like a console experience. Like it's a first class console experience. The controller support is just amazing.
I don't mean to jump
Um,
in, but was
yeah.
that why the game got delayed? Was because they wanted to do a really good job in the controller support? That was like a theory I heard a lot.
That is confirmed. Yeah. So one of the reasons it got delayed was the controller support. But they're also completely adding a million things to the end game as they're going through it, and they're also balancing the monetization and all these things. So it's not just the controller support, but they're also changing things. So like, for example, I mentioned that Helliquary raids are 8 players. They used to only be 4 players. So they changed that to be like this way more epic experience where you have to get 8 total players together, and you really have to coordinate your group. And I think it transformed everything for the better there.
Okay, cool. Yep, I was just
Yeah.
curious about that, and I'll let you finish your thought on like the different ways people are playing it and the different controllers. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, no worries. So yeah, if you're playing at a desk, the way to play it is basically to get your phone in like a mount, and then have a wireless Bluetooth controller that you're playing at. That way, your hands are free. You're not like looking down. You're not getting any neck strain. This is like the most ergonomic setup that you could imagine, right? It's you have like neutral spine and like that whole thing, right? And then there's the players who are going to play like more on a couch, like maybe for a few hours at a time. And for that, I would really recommend what's called like a controller clip, and it's where you clip this little plastic thing on your controller, and then it clips your phone in as well. So you're holding your controller, but the clip is also holding your phone right on top of the controller. So that way it's kind of like having this sort of like full Nintendo Switch-esque kind of thing. And then there's also sort of the breed of controllers, which are like the Razer Kishi or the Backbone. These are also sort of like a Nintendo Switch kind of thing. And the benefit of those is that they're more mobile, right? So like if you want to go over to a friend's house or you want to play on the train or the bus, it's a lot easier to pull that out of your bag, hook it up to your phone, and have like a more serious gaming session. And then finally, there's folks that like I I preach. I am the herald of controller support. I will always play this game with a controller. I will probably never use the touch support. But there are people that still swear by the touch support. Like the touch support is very, very good in this game, and there's some people that love it and don't like using a controller. So that's always an option to you.
Okay, cool. And some of those people that have like those Xbox controllers for your PC to play games, is that gonna be integrated? Like, is there gonna be a way to like broadcast Diablo Immortal to your PC and like use a controller? Did you ever try any of that stuff?
I did. So yeah, of course, if you want to like use AirPlay or like Bluetooth broadcast your game from your phone to like a TV and then connect your Bluetooth controller to your phone, that's also an option for you. Me personally, I know some people really liked playing that way. Me personally, I'm really sensitive to latency. I'm a very competitive player. So like even one more frame of latency, I can't tolerate. So casting anything or pushing anything over a wire is always going to introduce some latency, even if it's like one frame, right? So for me personally, I always want to play it natively on the phone and just like see the phone screen. But some players are going to want to, chill and relax and put it more on the TV or cast it and that sort of thing. And that's definitely an option for you.
Okay, cool. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you about was like the staying power. We see games that obviously
Mm-hmm.
Diablo Immortal's probably going to be a decently sized release. It's a Diablo IP, so you're going to have a lot of people interested in trying it. But you've got things like New World that come out and they're huge for 2 or 3 weeks, and then it craters. You've got things like Lost Ark where they come out and they kind of slowly decline, and it looks like it's settling into a pretty decent player base. So which one of those two scenarios you think is kind of more likely in Diablo Immortal's first kind of 6 months?
Yeah, I think this is more of a Lost Ark experience. I also think it'll go slightly differently than Lost Ark. But just the game in general, if you play Lost Ark and then you go and you play Diablo Immortal, you'll be like, oh, these are very similar games. They actually play pretty similar. They have a lot of similar ideas. They're also very different in that, Diablo Immortal is really, at its heart an ARPG, and then it has sort of MMO elements on top of it. And Lost Ark is more of a, at its heart, MMORPG with ARPG elements on top of it, right? So they're a little bit different of a breed, but um, yeah, I think it's going to have a lot of staying power, and a lot of the reason for that is that this team is they just work their butts off. Like I don't know what they're doing, but um, in between, so there's been 3 test cycles for the game. There's tech alpha, and closed beta, and between each of these test cycles was about 3 months or so. And every time there was a new test cycle, it was like getting a brand new expansion for the game. It was a massive drop of content, massive changes, brand new systems, like all sorts of new things all the time. And they've already indicated that that's sort of what we're going to see. Is every month there's going to be new Heliquary boss, there's going to be new cosmetics, there's going to be some new thing they drop down, and then of course, if you really get in the game, there's sort of like the whole cycle of strife end game PvEVP system. There's becoming the immortals, there's clans, there's dark clans, there's immortal clans, there's all these things to really enjoy if you get super super deep into the game. And even during the beta, I mean, it's a beta of a game, right? So like in the back of everyone's mind is, oh, I don't want to invest too much time into this because it's a beta. Um, People have been putting 500 to 1,000 hours into these betas and loving it. And it's a beta. So I can't imagine what release is going to be like. It's going to be absolutely nuts.
Cool. And yeah, gosh, it's funny because there's just a million things I want to talk about, but I don't want to do a 3 hour video, but and take up your whole day. But
Well,
just
let's do this. Let's do this again soon, and we can cover some more topics as well.
yeah, that sounds good. I guess just the last thing I wanted to ask, just because people are wanting to group up with their friends. You talked about an 8-player war band. Is there also like a clan where you can have 30 people, or is there like a max of 8 that you can kind of group up with?
Yeah, so I would categorize the social systems in this game as sort of like three things. So first of all, you have your friends list. This is sort of for like ad hoc grouping, right? So it's BattleNet, so you can just add people to your friends list and then party up with people in your friends list. And then there's war bands. They're a little bit more long-lived, so you have to decide, kind of like who's in your war band, and that's up to 8 players. And then there's clans, and clans is where you start getting into sort of the end game systems. And I believe that's going to be 100 players max for a clan. They did change that a little bit from the beta. In the beta, it was like 150. They kind of shuffled some of the end game systems around a little bit to sort of account for some changes that they made. But yeah, clan is going to be more like 100 players.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I don't want to take your whole day, but yeah, we'll have to touch base again here closer to release. And if I held your feet to the fire, what would be your prediction for release? I gotta ask.
Oh, like a particular date?
No, just like end of May, middle of June, like.
Ooh. Okay, well, I'll say what I know, and then I'll give you my take. So we know it's going to be before June 30th. They put a quote unquote, and they've confirmed that it's a placeholder date on the different app stores, right? So it's sometime before that. Diablo 3 season start is April 15th, and then Diablo 2 ladder a week or two after that. So I would say a week or two after that, like middle of May, is what you might be looking at. That's my guess.
That's funny because that's exactly what I've been saying for a while. Middle to end of May, like May 10th to May 25th is kind of what I've been guessing. But like you said, don't hold us accountable. We're just theory crafting here. All right, cool. Well, I will definitely provide links, to your channel so that people can check out a more in-depth look and maybe like a 10 or 15-minute deep dive on some of these topics. And I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll try to get another 1 or 2 in before the release here.
Of course. Hey, thanks for having me on, Chosen.
You bet. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Alrighty, so that does it for this one. Huge thanks to Echohack for taking some time to join me, and there's a lot more that we could get into, a lot more I want to know about to get ready for the launch of Diablo Immortal sometime here in the next month or two, we're hoping. And yeah, I'm going to put the links down below to his channel so you can check out more deep dives into some of these different topics that we covered, and that is going to do it for this one. So thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.